Benjamin. And 3 days grace. Live. September 23rd at Casey Center. With special guest Return to Dust. Get tickets now at HighVTips.com. Laser 103.3 presents Breaking Benjamin and 3 days grace.
What is up? It is bigger than 12. Derek Duke and I are both in the state of Texas, but we are a little too far apart to grab a beer together.
Well, you're in Frisco, so you're probably about good 5.5, 6 hours.
It is bougie here in Frisco. Bougie.
Rich part of town. I told you not to get the Tex-Mex there. I told you about that.
Yeah, didn't you say we're pretty much in Germany?
You're in probably the least Mexican side of Texas to get Mexican food imaginable.
So, the first day Williams and I got here on Monday, we had a couple beers at the hotel, and then we Ubered to what was supposed to be a dive bar, according to Apple Maps, and it was not a dive bar at all. It was like going to Wellman's in West Des Moines. It was a nice establishment, but it was not the dive bar atmosphere that we were looking for. So then we're like, let's get some barbecue. And we Ubered to this place. I text you. I don't remember what it was called. But we show up, and there is 100 people lined up outside. And we're like, we are so hungry. And we ended up Ubering. We saw this Tex-Mex place. It was in like a strip mall. It was actually pretty good, but we were the only people there. The only people there. So yeah, we probably, I don't even want to know how much money we spent on Ubers before we even ate our food.
Should have stuck with the barbecue, man. There's a reason there was a line outside the barbecue joint.
But that was going to be an hour and a half wait, and it wasn't one of those. It wasn't one of those places where you could like grab a beer while you wait in line either.
Okay.
So we were so hungry. I think we made the right call. Got some good nachos. It wasn't anything earth-shattering. But enough about food. We are bigger than 12, and I am currently at Big 12 Media Days. You'll be listening to this on Thursday. We're recording Tuesday night. I'm one of the last, probably one of the last 50 people here. Everything is all wrapped up. We are brought to you by WealthCharter Retirement Planning and Tax in the Channel Seed Studios. WealthCharter, they would have a lot to say about what Texas Tech is doing, on whether they're investing their money right. They're putting their chips all in. WealthCharter, they're not going to do that with your retirement money. They're going to safely invest it, and they're going to invest it very intelligently. And that's the type of service you can expect out of WealthCharter Retirement Planning and Tax. Go give Tim Hawkins and his team a visit online at wealthcharterretirement.com and set up an appointment at their office in Ankeny. We've got a very free-flowing show for you today. I've obviously been here covering Iowa State for Cyclone Fanatic, and we probably won't talk much Iowa State today because I think the majority of the storylines have come elsewhere.
For sure.
And we've got a list of 7, 8 topics that we'll get to. We might not even get to all of them. We'll just see where this goes. Should we start with Yormark? Should we start somewhere else?
I think we could start with Yormark, considering he really did kind of kick off Media Days. So we'll start with Yormark.
So Yormark, it was a big production, as it always is. And he opened up, I'd say with his most noteworthy thing was he doubled down on the 5+11 playoff model. And I think that's really what I want to focus on. And I still don't really know where I stand on it. I've gone back and forth. And what I do like is that Yormark is in unison with the majority of the coaches, at least that I've heard talk at the podium this week, that they want to earn it on the field. And it really is a bet on themselves because in the 5-11 model, you were leaving the option open to only get one team in the 16-team field. There's a proposal out there to get a guaranteed 2, and Yormark is doubling down and making the bet that the product that he is investing in, the product that some really good coaches are investing in, the really good quarterback play, he's banking that the committee will get it right and that the Big 12 could maybe have more than 2. What did you think about Yormark doubling down on the 5+11 college football playoff model?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting for him to actually double down on that. And he said it himself. It may not be the best thing for the Big 12 because you're not going to be guaranteed those 2 playoff spots. But he's saying what it is, it's fair, and he's right. I think that's probably the best model for college football moving forward, comparing to the SEC getting 4 teams in, the Big 10 getting 4 teams in. You know, that's something we've talked about on this show plenty of times. The other thing that really caught my attention, what you just mentioned there at the end, was he expects a second Big 12 team to make the playoffs. He said himself that he expects the Big 12 to earn multiple college playoff bids this year. So for me, that was quite the statement too. And you know, who knows what could happen? There's certainly no shortage of contenders this year for the conference title. We weren't really far off from having 2 potential playoff teams last year. If you look going back in the month of November last season, you had an argument for about 3 or 4 teams there to make the college football playoffs. So I wouldn't be surprised. Now, I'm not going to go home and just count on that. I'm not going to take that to the bank or anything like that. But I like the confidence of Brett Yormark. And you know, Jake, you probably felt it when he gets on that podium. When he enters a room, he has a presence and a swagger about him. So
100%.
I really liked his opening statement. Doubling down, again, probably not the best thing for the Big 12, but it's the best thing for college football moving forward. So I was a little surprised to see him double down on that. But hey, if that's what the coaches want, I think that's what we should get. But I don't know. We've talked about it so much and going back and forth and all these different opinions, but at the end of the day, I do believe that is probably the best model for college football.
It's impossible to like everything that Yormark does. It can be much, especially sitting here. The music, the type of music that was being played yesterday and how loud it was. There is a lot of flash. It's a big production. It is not just a college sports conference. But that's a lot of the charm of Yormark, too. And the Big 12 is in a good spot. Not a great spot. There's still room to grow. But they're in a good spot because of Yormark. And I think Bob Bowlesby was a fine athletic director. And I also think he probably treaded water too much and allowed the Big 12 to be walked over by bigger conferences. Yormark isn't like that. Is it still going to happen? Maybe, because of the power structure, but it's not going to be because Yormark is letting it happen. Yormark is not going down without a fight, and I could really feel that being here the last 2 days. Like Mike Gundy opened his press conference today by saying, "We've got the best commissioner in sports." And that's a really high praise. Like I don't know how you prove that, but when you've got a guy like Gundy who's been here for 21 years now, he's seen his fair share of different athletic directors, the different presidents around the conference, and when he speaks that strongly, people listen. And I think that just really shows how far Yormark has brought this conference, whether you agree with 100% of the things he does or not.
Yeah, Mike Gundy, as you mentioned, he's a guy that's been there for over 20-plus years in Stillwater. He's seen some shit, and he's seen a lot of conference commissioners come through here, as you mentioned, school presidents, athletic directors. So when he says a comment like that, you have to really believe him because he does speak his mind, whether you agree with it or not. And I think you're right on the Yormark thing. Compared to Bob Bowlesby was very reactionary, where I think Brett Yormark is very proactive. He wants to be the first to try something, and he's not afraid of it. You know, whether it fails or not, we'll see how it goes. But you're right. He was a good breath of fresh air that this conference definitely needed. He's an outside-the-box thinker, which is exactly the type of person I think you need running, a college athletic conference in this day and age. It's out with the old and it's in with the new.
And he's just cool and he's unique, which I think fits the conference really well. Gosh, he's a character. He had these interactions when people would ask questions. And some young looking guy stands up to ask a question and he's like, "Hey, I'm Jim Smith, the something Gazette, Globe, whatever." And Yormark says, "Is this your first time here?" It's like, "No, it's my 6th Big 12 Media Days." It was just he was doing that to like every question. It was very awkward. It's actually why I think Williams didn't ask a question. It's because he didn't want to deal with the interaction. Because
Williams would have said, "I've been here for 30 years."
Yeah, this is my
every conference. Yeah,
18th Big 12 Media Days.
Yeah.
No, so Yormark also had on the preseason poll. Nothing he said there was too shocking. Just that I think he even said what we've been saying, that the preseason poll, I think, hurt the Big 12's perception last year because Utah was picked so high, Oklahoma State was picked so high, and Arizona State started in the basement. And it shouldn't be that way. Teams should start on that equal playing field. And he just said it out loud that he thinks it hurt the Big 12's perception, and I agree with him.
100%. We talked about that a little bit on the last show when they got away with, just because they get away, they got rid of it doesn't mean we can't give our own preseason poll, which we may get to later in the show here for the Iowa Everywhere group. But you're right. I think I have no problem doing away with it. I think the Big Ten does, right? The Big Ten doesn't even do one.
Nope.
So
they do it through like a third party.
Okay. Well, yeah, the Big 12 does not need to do it again. We kind of saw last year, I've said before, you had Arizona State win the league after being picked to finish dead last. 4 of your top 5 teams that finished in the top 5 last year, 4 of them didn't even make the top 10 preseason in that media poll. So I think the only one was Iowa State, who was picked, I think, to finish 6th, and they ended up finishing 2nd. So
yep.
It really did hurt the perception of the league, not only inside the Big 12, but more importantly on a national level. And when you have the playoff committee looking at these kind of things, it really does hurt the league.
All right, let's move to Texas Tech.
Oh, boy.
And boy, do I have thoughts. Speaking of preseason polls, if there was one, they might be picked to win it. I'm sure consensus would be a top 3 team. I do not have them in my top 3. I had them 5th, and that might be even lower after this week.
Oh, come on.
I'm low on Texas Tech, man. Do you know that they haven't finished a season ranked since 2008? Mike Leach was there. They are a solid program that has probably underperformed for the last 15 years, and they are pushing all of their chips in. More power to them. They've got the resources to do it. But I just worry that when you're pushing the chips all in, what happens if they drop a game early? What happens when there's adversity and you've got all these transfers that are making millions of dollars that, who knows? How does a program like that respond to adversity compared to an Iowa State, a Kansas State? I'm really concerned about it, and I get the sense that the fan base isn't ready for the pressure and expectations, and I don't know how the building, whether it's the coaching staff, whether it's the players, I don't know how you can be ready for those expectations until you go through it once. And you look at that guy, Baron Morton. He's a fine quarterback, but he's also made of glass. What happens if he goes down? I'm selling low, or I guess I'm selling high on Texas Tech.
Yeah, I'm totally on the opposite page with you. In my preseason poll, I went back and forth between Tech and Kansas State at number 2. I ended up picking Texas Tech to make the Big 12 championship game. I didn't pick them to win it, but I do have them in Arlington. And look, we can play the what-if game all we want, but what if it does go the other way? What if they do win games? What if they do turn out to be the best team in the Big 12 because of all these transfers, because the money that they've put into this program. You know, as much as I hate to say it, maybe Joey McGuire should have been at Media Days. Maybe it should have been Cody Campbell up
He
there
was
at Media
here.
Days. Oh, he was there?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe he should have been the one answering
He was
questions.
making rounds on the radio. He didn't do a press conference or anything, but he was here.
He should have done a press conference because I think that would have been more fascinating to talk to than Joey McGuire would be. But that's just me. But look, Texas Tech's all in. They've pushed all their chips to the middle of the table. They're using all the resources that they have, and they are ready to win now. And the thing I do like about it is that Joey McGuire has been there for a few years. This is not Joey McGuire's first season in Lubbock. He knows what it's about. He knows he's been building that team. You know, I know you mentioned Mike Leake. They haven't finished as a ranked team since 2008. But the one thing I brought up before on the show is that Joey McGuire's had 3 straight winning seasons in conference play. 3 straight. Mike Leach he never had that during his time in Lubbock. As great as those teams were, so Joey McGuire, I think, he's got the program in the right direction. You're right about Baron Morton, who he quietly had a career year there last season that nobody talked about because it was overshadowed by Shedeur Sanders at Colorado, and maybe rightfully so because Sanders was fantastic, but I think the pieces are in place for Texas Tech to win now. I think adding what they were able to add through the transfer portal was a nice addition because they were able to get a lot of key pieces, especially defensively, where I think Texas Tech's probably had the most issues going back to Cliff Kingsbury days and Tommy Tuberville days where they didn't really play a whole lot of defense. Well, that's going to change hopefully this year for the Red Raiders.
That's part of where my concern comes from too, because look at the Lincoln Riley Oklahoma teams. It's not like they weren't scattered with 4 and 5 stars all over those defenses. They didn't have good defensive coaching. And I know they figured it out a little bit towards the end, but for the most part, those teams were terrible on the defensive side of the ball despite the talent that they have. I'm just not convinced yet that because I know they've spent money in the trenches, and that's where, if I want to make the case for Tech, it's not that they went out and spent $50 million, it's how they spent the $50 million. I think they did it in a wise way where they're not going to buy all these flashy toys that they can show, oh, look at our receivers. They're spending it on the dudes up front, and that is important. But I'm just not convinced that they're going to go from the very poor defense that we saw a year ago to one that can consistently contend at the top of the Big 12. And I'm probably in the minority, and I'm not high on Texas Tech, and they go to Utah, they go to Arizona State, they go to Manhattan. That's a tough schedule. And we know in this conference, 7-2 does not guarantee you a trip to Arlington. 7-2 probably guarantees you to be in a tiebreaker, but who knows if the tiebreaker goes your way. And I'm not convinced if they miss the Big 12 championship, if Joey McGuire will be back next year. Because they are going so all in this year that if you're spending that much money, at a minimum, you need to bring back a college football playoff appearance and maybe even a win.
That's fair to say, and I think Joey McGuire knows that. Everybody knows that, even if we don't want to talk about it out loud. We all know the expectations that this team's going to have due to the resources that they put in the program, so I wouldn't be surprised at all. The other thing I would say, I think without Texas and Oklahoma, like Oklahoma, even though they didn't play defense very well, they were playing for conference championships year in and year
totally.
out. I mean, they won, 6 straight conference titles
Yeah.
at one point and had one of the worst defenses in college football. So there's a hope for a Big 12 team. I don't know which program it's going to be. Maybe it's Texas Tech, to take a hold of this conference and be that new power in the Big 12, to establish themselves not only as the flag bearer for the Big 12, but to put themselves on the national map and become a new power program. So maybe it is Texas Tech, maybe it's Arizona State. I don't know who it's going to be, but it needs to be somebody.
And that's the next point I'm going to make, because I don't want Texas Tech to fail. Like, I like Joey McGuire. I like most Texas Tech fans. Selfishly, I wouldn't mind my take aging well. But even more selfishly, the Big 12 needs Texas Tech to live up to the hype. That is the best thing that could happen for the perception of the conference. If Texas Tech backs it up, go 11-1, 12-0, go and represent the conference in the playoff and go toe-to-toe with the big boys, that is the best case scenario for the conference. It's just it's putting a lot, and it's asking a lot of a pro in a long time.
Well, speaking of Texas Tech, I know you were talking about waiting in line for barbecue up there in Dallas. Tech, there's a beautiful place outside of Lubbock called in Wolford, Texas. It's called Eva Mae's Barbecue. Some of the best barbecue you're going to eat. And while you wait, they do have an entire trough of cold beer that you can grab for free.
Man, that sounds so good.
I just thought about that when you were talking about the long line.
So Texas Tech has so much money.
Yes.
And big corporate, university, oil money. Freedom Tire, a great sponsor of Iowa Everywhere, is a local company. And I'm guessing they don't have $50 million they're sitting on to spend on a football roster. But despite that, they are still giving away free tires. And not only that, if you get the free tires, they're also going to pay it forward and donate a new set of tires to any nonprofit of your choice. Man, that is incredible.
That is.
Freedom Tire is awesome, and they're doing that as a local company, and they're just doing it out of the goodness of their heart, and they're doing it to celebrate 50 years. 50 years of business. Go support Freedom Tire at any of their Ames, Altoona, Des Moines, West Des Moines, or Urbandale locations. And the best way to do that would be go to, is it iowaeverywhere.com, Aiden? Yes, iowaeverywhere.com, and you can learn how to win a free set of tires. Thanks to Freedom Tire. We always thank Freedom Tire on our show, but a little extra thanks for their good deed. Go to iowaeverywhere.com for a chance to win. Where now? Should we talk Scott Frost? Welcome back.
We can welcome back Scott Frost.
I don't know what I was doing. I didn't hear his quote about Nebraska that went viral, but essentially, Scott, I'll just find the exact quote.
I mean, he pretty much just said, "Don't take the wrong job."
Yeah.
When he was asked about Nebraska,
he was asked what he learned from Nebraska.
Yeah.
That was the verbiage, and he said, "Don't take the wrong job." Oh man! So at the time, it was not the wrong job. It was the most obvious jump from the Group of Five to the Power Five of all time. I just can't believe he said this, especially as an alum of Nebraska, as one of the most famous Cornhuskers of all time. None of the blame is on him. It's always someone else, and that's what we learned in his time up in Lincoln. I just can't believe he said that publicly.
I don't have much of an issue with it because you're right. At the time, he was the hottest coaching commodity around when he was going to leave UCF. And it was just that natural fit. He went to Nebraska. He played football there. He was a big star there. So to me, it was a very natural fit. It was an obvious one at that. So I don't have an issue with it. Plus, I think when you look back at his time there, obviously it was a complete train wreck. It was not any better than the previous regime. Nebraska went seemingly nowhere.
It was worse. It was worse than the Mike Riley era.
You can certainly make an argument for that, and I probably would agree with that as well. But I'll say this, like before NIL, Nebraska really was not a great job to begin with. You're in the middle of the country. You have no recruiting base in the state of Nebraska. You're having to recruit pretty much nationally in Texas and Florida, California. You're having to go coast to coast to get kids to come to Lincoln, Nebraska. That's not easy. As we learned with Texas Tech before, it wasn't always easy in getting recruits to Lubbock, Texas, just because of where it was located. So to me, Nebraska was never that same power it was. This isn't 1995 anymore, where you can just recruit Nebraska at anybody and they just stars light up in their eyes. So I think he had an uphill battle there to begin with. I'm not sure he thought it was going to be that tough. And yeah, he probably did make a mistake. And if you think about it, that was really outside of UCF, that was his big break at the Power 5 level, was Nebraska. He had never was a head coach at the Power 5 level before that. He only had 2 seasons, I believe, in Orlando before turning that thing around. So I don't really blame him for saying what he said. So I don't think maybe looking back, it was probably the perfect job that we all thought it was at the time.
Yeah, and the thing you forgot to add is the lack of resources at Nebraska, again, pre-NIL, added with the expectation that Nebraska should be winning championships. That is
fair.
That's the magic sauce, because in a vacuum, Iowa State and Nebraska are very similar jobs. And then you factor in the media pressure, the pressure from the fan base. If Iowa State had the expectations to win national championships every year and had the entire state behind them, no Iowa, then Iowa State becomes an even harder job than it already is.
For sure.
And we saw that fail with Frost, and I think Matt Rule's going to do just fine. But this is not a Nebraska podcast. Welcome back, Scott Frost. I guess welcome to the Big 12. He's never been here, but
no.
Welcome back to UCF. Sticking on coaches, so both days they did this 8-coach panel hosted by Matt Berry, friend of the program of ESPN. Yep, there's a picture of it. And it was just so ridiculous. This is today. So up there, you've got Dion Sanders. You've got Mike Gundy. You've got Sonny Dykes with so many resources in Fort Worth. Then you've also got Brent Brennan up there, who I don't think they've got an abundance of resources in Tucson. It was just so funny to see the contrasting styles, and it was a really hard job for Barry, because Barry's asking like, "Oh, Tech, you guys have made some moves," and then there's also Matt Campbell up there, who earlier in the day said that the top 20 guys on their roster turned down the opportunity to take money somewhere else to stay at Iowa State. It was just a really funny contrast to see the different levels of not levels of coaches, but levels of where the coaches are at and what they have to work with.
Well, I mean, just in that picture alone, you got Mike Gundy, Kyle Whittingham, 2 guys, winding down their careers. Dion, the Flash. You got Sonny Dykes on the hot seat. Lance Leopold trying to build up a program that was once dead. I mean, you have all kind of personalities, and that's the great thing. Not only do you have these different personalities, you have all these coaches who stepped into completely different situations from when they walked in. So yeah, it is definitely an odd thing to have 8 coaches up there at one time.
It almost would have been better to do like 4 pods of 4.
Yes,
because you could throw McGuire, you could throw Dykes, even Dave Aranda, maybe Gundy. I know it's not the same without Boone Pickens now, but those are a lot of big money spenders. And then you could easily put Iowa State, Kansas, K-State, Cincinnati in the same one, and
could have been planned better.
It's nothing serious, but I just thought it was funny. And the only reason, shout out to Matt Berry. The only reason I even thought of that was because Barry was talking to Williams and I about it last night on just trying to ask questions that fit everybody. And that's another great part about the Big 12.
Yeah.
There's so many different schools compared to most other conferences.
Yeah, they should have paired Gundy and Dion together. That would have been an interesting.
They were
there. Oh, they were.
They were just on the opposite
together.
Oh yeah, they were just on the opposite sides of the stage. Okay, let's get to Dion. Hate him or love him, he gives an entertaining press conference. My goodness. He walks up there and he's talking, nobody's got it better than me. God's good. My health is good. No, nobody's got it better than me. And then he just kept saying that. Michael Irvin was here, which I didn't know. He just was like, shout out to Playmaker coming over here. And he about started crying. It was a very wholesome moment, especially for a diehard Cowboys fan like me. He said, when asked about Kenny Dillingham Apparently, those two almost were on the same staff at one point, which, could you imagine that? I'd love to be in that locker room. And then he just said, yeah, me and Kenny, we both came in as virgins at the same time to the Big 12.
Yeah, that was quite a quote there, yeah.
One of the reporters from The Athletic asked him a personal question about how his health is. I know he's been having the health struggles and what his day-to-day looks like. And he said, yeah, The Athletic is always trying to get at me, so I'm just going to decline the question from you guys. And then he said something like, but hope you're doing well, man. It was the most entertaining part of my week. Watching the charisma. He said something, too, where I know a lot of people love to watch us win, a lot of people love to watch us lose, but at the end of the day, a lot of people just love to watch us. Like that.
I mean, that's
fair. Sick. It's all like that. I mean, that's just true. It's true, and the way that he comes up with all this stuff on the fly, I don't know how he does it. He's got so much charisma, and I was talking with Alec Bussey of 247. I like Dion. I cheer for Dion. I don't know if I'd want to cover him, but at the same time, I also kind of want to cover him. Like the amount of sound bites you're getting, quotes.
You'd be tired. My thing is, you would be tired of it mid-season, especially depending on how the year goes. Because if it's going great, you'll have fun. You'll have a great time. But as we've seen before, if things aren't going his way, it can turn very nasty very quickly. So the whole it's great. God is good. I love all that. Nobody's got it better than me. I would like to see if he has that same attitude if Colorado is sitting towards the bottom of the standings in the Big 12 and see how that plays out before I'm really buying in.
Talking more football, he did have a really interesting answer when asked about his quarterbacks. He's got Caden Salter, the transfer from Liberty, and he's also got the 5-star freshman coming in, Juju Lewis. And he said that he thinks both of them can play, and that it'll most likely be Salter to start the season. But he said whenever Juju figures it out, I'm paraphrasing, like, look out Salter. Like, it's going to be Juju's program, is essentially what he was getting at. And I thought that was a very prime way of doing it, if you will. But I thought that was fascinating that he said, like, yeah, we brought Salter in, and I think the world of him, but this next kid's going to be better. You don't hear many coaches talking like that.
Well, Salter's a rental, essentially. He's basically a rental player. And then, Lewis is going to be your cornerstone of your program, hopefully for years to come. So, I get what he's saying, and I think he's also playing a little bit of mind games with Salter as well there, which I kind of like because not a lot of coaches are going to say that out loud.
Yeah, I like the honesty.
Yeah.
Mike Gundy, his press conference was the best part of my day until Dion showed up. I could listen to Gundy talk forever. He was sharing a story about how he always goes on a vacation late in July, right before fall camp starts. And he said that pretty much every single year when he's been on the job, he would have his 2 deep pretty set in stone before he left for vacation. This year he said that he doesn't even know his starters in 8 of the 22 positions. Like, they are such a question mark to me because they are so brand new. So brand new.
That's kind of the status quo now that we're in, like, the transfer portal era, because you just don't know with all these. And Oklahoma State's another team that brought in a lot of new faces, and after you go 2-10 last season or 3-9 last season and go winless in conference play, you kind of have to change the makeup of your roster. He made a bunch of staff changes. One thing I did find interesting from Gundy, he mentioned Zane Flores, their quarterback, who's one of 2 quarterbacks that are battling for that job, and he spoke very highly of him. I thought that was kind of encouraging because Oklahoma State last season, it kind of was a quarterback carousel.
Oh, gosh.
You had 4 different quarterbacks playing, and then you had Alan Bowman, who was in for his, 8th year. So there was a lot going on at the quarterback position. I think Oklahoma State's one of those teams that needs to have an established quarterback already set in place, but we're not going to really see that. Flores has been there for, I think, it's his third season in Stillwater, so we'll see what happens with Oklahoma State. I don't think anybody's betting high on them this season, but that's also kind of when Mike Gundy shocks a lot of people. Maybe he does his best work.
Yeah, he gave some good insight, too, into roster building, and what he said is he used to have like his prototypical quarterback. You think to the Brandon Whedons, to the Mason Rudolphs, like he would actively go out and recruit that type of quarterback. But he said now with the transfer portal, you don't know if that guy is going to stick it out. He could easily transfer after not getting snaps as a freshman, and then you yourself are going out in the portal to find your quarterback. And he said that now he's building his offenses around a quarterback, which has changed in the last decade. I just thought that was really insightful because I even think when I was younger, all these programs have their style of quarterback. Every Alabama quarterback before Jalen Hurts was pretty much the exact same pocket passer, very low NFL ceiling, and everyone kind of recruited the same type of kid year in, year out. And when you look at it now, it's not really like that at all.
Well, and you mentioned Oklahoma State, kind of just thinking off the top of my head, their quarterback history. I can remember, when I was growing up, Zach Robinson was their guy. He was pretty mobile, athletic quarterback. Brandon Whedon, not the most athletic guy, great arm. Then you kind of enter that era of the J.W. Walsh, I believe it was, who was super athletic, maybe not the best passer. Then you go to Mason Rudolph, who's a true pocket passer. Spencer Sanders, athletic as anybody I've maybe ever seen there at Oklahoma State at the quarterback position. So they've definitely had a different type of quarterback every couple of years. So yeah, I can definitely believe that for Gundy.
So I think we just got one more media day topic, unless you have anything you want to hit on. Farmageddon, it's been a big topic because it literally opens the season 45 days from now, 44 if you're listening on whatever day it is. Thursday. It's Wednesday. My days have been screwed up all freaking week. This will be out on Thursday. And kind of my angle when I interviewed Avery Johnson and a couple of the other players, my angle was how like both teams are going through the same thing. Both teams are flying out. Both teams have to adjust to a 6-hour time change. Both teams have to fly back and play week 1. But what I didn't realize or even give thought to it until Chris Kleiman said it in his press conference was they're losing a home game. So it really isn't an equal playing field. Iowa State does have the slight advantage in the fact that they don't have to go to Manhattan and play K-State. And I didn't really put that together until this week. So maybe it's not a completely even playing field.
Plus, you forgot to mention the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Pop-Tarts is going to be there. That's the big storyline from that game right now.
I'm all Pop-Tarted out.
You're not going to bring any Pop-Tarts overseas to Ireland? Show the people.
Dude, they had some here. Like
really?
I bought too many Pop-Tarts around the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I don't think I've had one since.
I don't blame you. I'm not a big Pop-Tarts guy either, to be honest with you.
That's all you got to add, Pop-Tarts?
Pretty much. Look, the game's the game. We know how big it is. The only thing I'm pissed off about is that that's going to be the last Farmageddon game for a while. Like, I am thrilled as all get out that that's going to start the season, but I am really at the same time, I'm also kind of sad because it was not a protected rivalry in the Big 12 when
stupid.
It clearly should have been. And I don't know, maybe that would have been a good question for Yormark as well, but I don't know. I don't really have anything to add on Farmageddon. I'll kind of worry about that once we kind of get closer to that game.
So I got it. Maybe this is something Aiden can pull up. I know the next game will be in 2027 after the year off in 26. Is that in Ames or is that in Manhattan? Because there's a world where if the game is in Ames, because this is technically like a K-State home game, it could go 5 years without a Farmageddon in Kansas.
Oof.
I think Aiden's pulling it up. I don't even know how long ago those opponents were released. That might be hard to find.
Ago. It's been a couple months.
Either way, it is weird that we're not going to get a traditional Farmageddon for a couple years.
It sucks. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it does suck. It really does suck.
So stupid. Oh well. Okay. Let's move on. I think we've got an Iowa trivia question. Oh wait, Aiden's got something.
What does he have?
I think Aiden's got an Iowa trivia question. Oh, we've got the opponents. Producer of the year. So in 2020, my eyes are... In 2026,
they
it's
host
home.
Kansas State.
So yeah. And then there's no game in 2027.
No, it's stupid.
I didn't realize. I thought it was just 1 year off. So there won't be a Farmageddon in Manhattan from 2024 to 2028.
Nope.
28 will be the first one. Man. That's depressing.
I mean, it sucks. Again, that game should be played every single year. There's no excuse for that game not to be played.
It's better for Iowa State if they don't have to go to Manhattan for 4 years, but it's not good.
Last time they were in Manhattan, what happened?
Snowshoe Sama.
It was.
Actually, the last 2 times they've been in Manhattan.
Yep.
All right. That was a good discussion. We hit a lot of topics.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to add from Media Days from your perspective there?
I don't think so. I think I'm looking around to make sure I'm not missing anything, but I think I'm good.
Yeah, there were a couple things, tidbits here and there. I thought, Kenny Dillingham saying he's kind of going from the hunted to the hunter, or the hunter to the hunted was pretty interesting. Scott Satterfield, our boy, we did have a tweet about actually from a Cincinnati fan talking about the crap that we give Satterfield, and he did say that he has the best Cincinnati team he's had since he's been there.
I did see that.
I thought that was pretty interesting, and then
I kind of agree.
Well. That's fair. I hope so. It's his 3rd year.
Yeah.
And then Kyle Whittingham talking about maybe the possibility of retirement and how he did not want to end his career at Utah with a 5-7 season. Also, probably a part of the reason why we got rid of the preseason poll, because Utah was the unanimous pick to finish first in the conference and ended up not even making a bowl game.
Yeah, so I mentioned being down on Tech. We're going to go over our preseason polls in a bit. I might be flipping Utah up more. I think I'm a little higher on Utah coming out of this week than I was going in.
That's fair. You can do whatever you want. It's your poll.
All right, we'll get to the polls, but first we've got our trivia question from Aiden.
Going back to the basics, what we've been doing for the last couple weeks. All right, Derek, name this town in Iowa.
I've been corrected on this.
You want me to spell it out for the folks at home?
Sure, go for it.
So it's TRIPOLI. I want to say Tripoli, but I don't think that's not the correct term. That's not the correct word. I'm going to say Tripoli.
Jake?
I know that I've said this wrong and right before. I think it's Tripoli.
Nope.
Is it Tripoli?
Tripola.
Oh, yeah.
That's
so
right.
Instead of Tripoli, like you said the first time, it's Tripola. A lot of people get that one wrong.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm ashamed to be an Iowan. They might not let me back in.
I don't even know where that's at. I've never heard of that town.
I think that's out east.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
If there's anybody out there from that town, just let us know and we're sorry.
All right, let's close with the Iowa Everywhere preseason poll. Randy Peterson just jumped right on it. He compiled, I think it was 8 of us.
That's a great photo of him. That's a nice photo right there.
That is. That's probably a live photo. Randy's probably out on the lake right now.
Oh, boy.
For those at home that aren't watching, that are listening. It goes Arizona State, Texas Tech, Utah, K-State, Iowa State, Baylor, Kansas, TCU, BYU, and Colorado. Anything jump out to you as surprising?
I think the Iowa State at 5 was pretty interesting, just kind of from everybody's poll there, because I do have them higher. I'm not surprised that Arizona State or Texas Tech in those positions. I have them pretty much exactly where everybody else has them in that poll. I am a little bit surprised at Utah at 3. I know you said you're going to bump them up. I don't even.
Well, I believe I had them at 8.
Yeah, I did not have Utah that high at all, so I don't know exactly where that came from. But kind of looking, I have the list of every individual preseason poll here. Jake, you had Utah at 8. I had Utah at 6, so I was actually higher on Utah than you were in this poll. But for them to be picked 3rd, that is a huge jump from where you and I view the Utes this year. So I'm a little bit surprised at that. Baylor. I have Baylor maybe a tad higher. I will have to say Chris Williams having Baylor at 9. I believe he's already gotten some shit for that.
We both saw Aranda like 5 times. In the hotel lobby, I was in the elevator with him.
That's a sign.
And I was wearing my Cyclone Fanatic gear, and I was afraid. I was afraid that he'd gotten word of Williams and Bloom just underselling him.
Yeah, I have Baylor in my top. I believe I have Baylor in my top 6. I think it was. So I'm pretty high on Baylor. I think that they may be the dark horse pick to win the Big 12 this year, just from what they bring back with Sawyer Robinson, their offensive line, Washington at running back, their defense I think is going to be better. So seeing Baylor that low from Williams was a bit surprising. I know BYU is at 9 on this poll. I did look at a couple individual polls, like I mentioned. A lot of people were still high on BYU, despite the Jake Retzloff situation, which Kalani Sitake really refused to talk about, which I respect. But
yeah,
I'm out on BYU. If Retzloff's not coming back, I'm completely selling the Cougar stock.
I was already out on BYU before all of that happened, and now they're most likely heading into the season without their starting quarterback. I think last year, and you can say this about a lot of teams, and Iowa State being one of them, they just won a lot of one-score games. And I don't think that their margin of error is wide enough to do it again. But who knows? It's not like Retzloff is a world beater anyways. Like he was a good quarterback, but he's not irreplaceable.
Yeah, and I thought BYU was going to take a step back regardless, and then you take away Retzloff. That's why I didn't have BYU in my top 10. I believe I put Cincinnati at 10, but of course, I think
big Satterfield guy here
at 10. I don't know if 10's going to save his job, but it's an improvement from last season, so we'll see where that goes. But I was a little bit surprised. I did see quite a few people in our poll that had BYU, I think, in their top.
No, you had Cincinnati at 9. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I had them at 9. Look at me go. Look at me. I guess I'm on the Cincinnati train now, as much shit as I was talking about Scott Satterfield, but that might change. I'm going to have to change that.
You are unbelievably high on Cincinnati. Wow. Go over to Circa and place your bets on the over.
I guess if I had to be high on something, it would be Cincinnati, huh?
Yeah, our polls are pretty similar.
They were. And we didn't even talk about our polls, and I think that's pretty crazy that we kind of had the same thought train there kind of going on.
See, I'm probably going to push Tech down to like 9 or 10 though.
You have Tech at 5. How much? You can't push them down any further than 5. There's no way. Is there anybody? I'm going to look right now. There is nobody else that voted in our poll that has Texas Tech as low as you.
Okay, so I don't participate in groupthink.
I take that.
Arrest
back.
me.
I take that back. There is one other person that has Texas Tech as low as you, and that is Matt Van Winkle.
Van Woke.
He has Tech at 5.
Well, it's because Van Woke hates oil. He's all about these electric cars.
Oh, he's all about like the vegetable oil in the cars.
Yeah,
electric cars.
He's low on tech for different reasons.
I gotcha.
I don't know, man. I kind of like Kansas. I'm bullish on TCU.
That's fair because of their schedule. I don't mind where people put TCU because I think they maybe have the toughest schedule in the Big 12.
I might tonight on the plane. I might work my final, like full 1 through 16 media ballot, and put it on Twitter.
Well, save it. No. Save it for. We're gonna do a show at some point. We're gonna do a preseason show.
Okay.
Maybe save it for that.
All right. I'll start tech at 16, and I've got to convince myself for them to keep going up.
Maybe Cody Campbell will buy you out.
I really hope Coach McGuire's not here.
Cody Campbell is going to buy you out, and you'll be working for him pretty soon.
That's a terrifying thought. If I come on next week with some Texas Tech propaganda, you're going to know what happened.
I'll know what happened exactly.
I'm high on Tech basketball.
You know damn well he took a private jet from Lubbock to Frisco.
Oh yeah, he's way out of here.
Yeah, he's been gone.
I mean, the basketball team, they've got this Christian Anderson. He's not. I don't know what country he was playing for in the FIBA, but he was absolutely tearing it up against Team USA.
Oh, really?
I think it's for Germany. But they've got like German Steph Curry.
German Steph Curry.
So, Cody Campbell, I just said something nice about Texas Tech. I think the basketball team's going to be fantastic. All right, that was a show all over the place. Hopefully it didn't ruffle too many feathers.
Nah, I think we'll be all right.
But join me. If you're on my anti-tech bandwagon, hop on.
No, pass.
No, not you. Our great listeners. I don't want to be on a bandwagon with you.
You better get out of there before they close those tables on you with them.
I know. I think there's only like 6 of us sitting down now, so I'm gonna pack up, go get some food, and sit in the airport. Thanks for tuning in to Bigger Than 12. Thanks for supporting all my coverage, all of Chris Williams' coverage on social media. It's been fun, and man, we are in football season. Iowa Everywhere is your place to listen to all of our content. 44 days away. Thanks for tuning in.